Welcome back. Well, nothing triggers mixed emotions quite like a reunion, whether it be catching up with school classmates years after graduating or bringing together family members after a long time spent apart. Reunions, or even the thought of them, leave many people critiquing themselves and their life choices. So why do we care so much about the opinions of people we haven't seen in years? For today's agenda, I'm joined by author Kerry Sackville and psychotherapist Melissa Ferrari. Good morning and welcome to you both.
Hello.
We've been excited to talk about this one because so many people have an opinion on it. Kerry, take us back to your first reunion. What was the lead up and how did it go?
I remember it vividly. And it's funny because I don't remember a lot of my life, but I remember that moment. It was our 10-year reunion. It was back in 1995, and that was before Facebook. So we really hadn't been keeping up with each other. There were a few friends that I'd seen, but a lot I hadn't seen at all for 10 years. And I walked into this room, and your eyes you recognise people immediately. And then you think, oh, is that actually them? Because suddenly they look completely different, and then you recognise them again. And I was so nervous. I was so worried about what I was wearing and how I came across. And I remember my primary concern that day was to impress the boy that I'd had an unrequited crush on at school all those years. And 10 years down the track, even though I was in a relationship, I still wanted to impress him. And I think I failed, actually.
What was he like 10 years on? Was he still appealing?
I can't even tell. My brain just immediately went back to my 17-year-old self and saw him as his 17-year-old self. And I think that's really interesting. I think we're sort of stuck there there's some part of all of us that is still stuck as that 17-year-old that we were in high school, and it will always be in us, and we can change and grow, but then when we see people from school, we just revert straight back like we do with family. I think.
Melissa, just unpack that. Is that quite an accurate assessment insofar as I guess the main structure is there at school?
Yes.
What you see is going to be what you're going to see down the track.
What we're doing along the way psychologically is that we're pretty much hijacking everyone we've ever had anything to do with. And so people at school we've had close contact with daily, like five days in a week. And so they do become important even if we're not aware of it. They become a part of that kind of emotional plane of who are we, how have we been shaped psychologically. And so I think that they do play a really important part, and a big part of us does want to impress them later.
Why is that though? Why do we care, really?
Well, I think we care because we do tend to use, I think as an society, we do tend to use an external yardstick, It's kind of like comparing yourself to others. Am I doing as well as somebody else? And I think it really has a downside because we've all had different things happen in our lives. Some have had things happen, have had many crises, and so life hasn't gone so well. And so I think to compare ourselves to others isn't useful in that way because we're all unique and we've all got our own individual way of being and getting through the world. And happiness is not always about that external yardstick. How successful am I? How gorgeous is my partner? And all of those kind of things.
It's really interesting. Kerry, did it make you want to go to the next reunion, or did you decide to just blow them off there on in?
Yeah, no, I did go to the next reunions, and I think that the more insecure you are at any given time in your life, the more you're going to care about impressing other people. And I think I was very insecure at school, and so I wanted to go back at the 10-year reunion and show them that I was, I wasn't quite as daggy, and I knew a bit more how to dress. I hope I've done a good job today. And then as the years went on and I became more secure in myself, I dreaded the school reunions less, and I felt a little bit more concerned with how I was going to appear, and more interested in what other people were like. And I think that's really important. I think no matter who we're around, the better we feel about ourselves, the less we're going to be judging other people and the less we're going to be worried about how they judge us.
So that's interesting. Is it an opportunity, therefore, to... Revenge is too strong a word, but maybe to get your own back, to go, okay, well, I might have been, in your words, a bit daggy at school or didn't impress at school, wasn't really a star, but look at me now. Like, is there something in the human psyche that want to repair our image, if you like?
Of course, Anna, but I think you've got to be aware of that. I always think have grace. If you are in those environments and you maybe have done a whole lot better than someone else, or your perception is that you've done better than somebody else, well then be careful of that because it will get played out. We are so interesting as humans, you know. We do compete. Competitiveness. I know in my life I've had to openly say, you know, yeah, I do have a big competitive edge and I'm okay with it. And it doesn't mean it's because I'm developmentally stuck in something from the past that means I'm like a kid that likes to compete. I think that we do have that natural kind of edge to want to compete and to look good and come up feeling okay. And I think what Kerry raises about insecurities at different stages in your life is such an important point, because when you are doing really well or you're feeling secure about yourself, you put off a far better energy. And I think personally to have that awareness when you know you're in a good place or when you're not in such a good place is very, very powerful in terms of how you present yourself and how you relate to others.
Yep. Well, we asked on Facebook if you dread reunions, and here's what some of you have had to say. Burns says, I remember my brother and his friend went to one and couldn't figure out who all the old people were. Isn't that the truth? Sally says, who needs the awkwardness of a reunion now when we have Facebook? And Stuart has posted, school reunions are good for a laugh as most of the beautiful people are no longer beautiful. Did you notice that?
Good on.
The ugly ducklings have also turned into the swans, I noticed.
And I noticed that, you know, it's a generalisation, but I think the men age a lot worse than the women.
Yeah.
You know, the women tend to come into their own. And
We've got tricks, let's be honest.
And we have tricks and tips, and we just may or may not have spent 20 minutes in makeup before we came on TV. But the men, you know, if they can't hang on to their hair and they're not doing a lot of exercise, they very quickly become middle-aged.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's the thing about Facebook, isn't it? Now, Facebook, there's you know, with Facebook, there's no surprises anymore. So we're all keeping tabs on each other. We're all in groups with all our old school friends now, and there's alumni pages, and so school reunions aren't quite the same kind of reveals that they used to be. Sadly,
that's true. Melissa, for anyone watching who might be just contemplating this very thing at the moment, should I go? Shouldn't I? What would you say? No, I would say perhaps don't take it too seriously and just enjoy the opportunity. But have you got any other advice?
Look, I do think you need to protect yourself in it. You know, if you really, really did have a really, really tough time at school and it wasn't a good experience for you, you might go back into it and it may even re-traumatise you a little bit. So a bit of self-care around those kind of things. When you're actually at the event and you're aware that there's going to be someone there that you know will probably trigger you, because if they did back then, they probably still will now, be with your partner, take your partner along, stay close to them, don't associate with that person a whole lot, but also go in quite centred, like centre yourself in whatever ways you do it, because it's important to have the nervous system well regulated if we're going into something like that. So anything that people do, meditation, positive self-talk, imagery, that this is going to go really, really well. Imagine telling a friend later, oh, I went to my school reunion and it was fantastic and everybody loved me.
So you're saying drinking heavily is not the way to go?
I don't think so.
That's been my technique in the past.
Yeah, alcohol kind of necessary.
Yeah, I'll take that on board. I've got a lot of champagne.
Which can go either way.
Yeah, sure
and maybe take a wingman or wingwoman so you've sort of got that support. Really interesting discussion. Thank you both for being in.
George.
Enjoy your weekend.
Georgie.
Over to you, Carl and Sylvia.
Thank you very much,
What do you
Georgie.
mean men don't age as well? I love schnitzel and stuff.
You are what you eat, Carl.
But I'm a fitness machine. What are you laughing for?
Nothing at all. That smells
Divine.
very fried.